Welcome everyone. Welcome to Advocacy April, the COABE webinar. Hopefully you're excited to learn about a lot of great advocacy information and tools that we're going to be providing today. Just going to wait a minute as people enter before I introduce our great panelists today. Thank you so much for coming and joining with us for Advocacy April. If you want, go ahead and tell us where you're from, your name and where you're from in the chat while we're waiting just a minute. Okay, well, we want to get started on time. So again, welcome everyone to the Advocacy April webinar. Today we have with us our great CEO, Sharon Bonney. We have our government relations expert from Penn Hill Group, Donica Petrosius, and we have our advocate of the year, Renee Rivers, as well as our fabulous sponsor, Dan Griffith from Essential Ed. COABE is really proud to serve all of you and a system of nearly 80,000 educators and leaders, along with 1.2 million learners. So we're able to do this work through our great sponsor, Essential Ed. So please welcome Dan Griffith from Essential Ed for a few words.
Thanks, Regina, appreciate it. And thanks to all of you who are here today for this kind of a critical opportunity to learn more about the tools and ways in which you can continue advocacy efforts in your states and nationally as well. Essential Education is just proud to partner with you. I don't have an ad for any product or anything today. We're so excited just to be a partner with COABE. It's such a great organization. We feel like every dollar we spend with COABE is well spent and really cared for and made sure that the money is used to benefit adult ed students and teachers and people across the country. And you know, it's a difficult work. Working in adult education is not something, you know, you can't just write a check and really make a difference. You have to get in and really learn the people and learn how, you know, their lives are impacted and what they need. And I'm a great example of that. I was a high school dropout at 17, the end of my junior year, and making $4.25 an hour, and was sure I was going to be fine doing that until I realized that there were a lot of opportunities ahead of me if I'd get some education and learn some skills and get focused. And you know, it's kind of messy work. You have to handle a lot of different things in people's lives, and we just appreciate the work that you do. We appreciate the opportunity Essential Education has to be a part of this. This is all we do. We're not a K-12 publisher. All we do is adult education, and we're grateful for how you've given more than just a check. You've given your hearts and your hands and your time, even to be here to make a difference. And so if we can ever do anything to support you, please reach out to us. And thanks again to COABE for putting this on and for all the work you do to keep funding in this field where it really makes a difference in people's lives. Thanks, Regina.
Thanks so much, Shannon. Thanks also for sharing your story. All right, so next up, we're going to hear about what is happening hot off the presses from Donica at the federal level. Thanks so much for joining us, Donica, to give us a federal update.
You got it. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me, Regina and Sharon and Dan. Very nice to meet you. And Renee, I'm looking forward to hearing you. I am here to give you a little bit of update. First, I just want to say on behalf of all of the COABE group here, thank you for all the work you've been doing over the last few years. It's been a pleasure to work with all of you. And we've seen some great success. And part of what I'm going to update you on today is just when you make your voices heard and when you activate in Congress, we do see changes and improvements in funding and policy. Funding and policy are both things that we care deeply about at COABE. We want to make sure that funding increases so you have the capacity to do the programs that you want to do well, and also to change policy to make sure it aligns to the most modern and up-to-date work you are doing and effective programming. So in the past year, we've been working on a couple things. One is we just found out on March 15th that we had an FY22, which is the fiscal year that started in October 21 and ends September 22, a $15.5 million program in our adult education state grant program. The total funding is $690 million this year. It's something that we had to work very hard on. Many programs at the end of the day were funded at flat funding. A few were cut. It was very good that adult education was considered for an increase. However, it's not enough, and we'll talk a little bit more about what we're going to do going forward. We also have something, as you know, called reconciliation. For those who've been very active, you've seen our legislative updates and our alerts about these. But the president had proposed something called Build Back Better, and the House had passed it. And because of your activism, we were able to secure $700 million in that initial House bill, $700 million in one-time pandemic relief funding for the adult ed program. That is basically another whole year of funding on top of what you're already getting if it were to happen. Those negotiations stalled. Democrats have to all agree in order to pass this particular bill. It has to get 50 Senate Democrats on it. And right now the Democrats do not agree on what should be in there. So what we're doing is we're watching with a very watchful eye when those negotiations, hopefully they will, kickstart again with the Senate, then we will immediately alert you and ask you to reactivate around that $700 million. In addition, I think it's really important that as all of you are talking to your legislators, congressmen, and working all of this going forward, that you continue to mention both the need for our annual appropriations to increase, as well as having this one-time relief that'll help move us forward. You know, higher education, K-12 education, early education, all received a lot of pandemic relief to sort of modernize and keep up and address some of the pandemic related issues. The workforce and adult education world have not yet received that, and we think it's an important step that should be taken. We've also had some policy victories, and it's really important that as we increase the funding, we also try to move the policy opportunities for us forward. We were able to be part of very much helping to craft a research bill that would make adult education research a priority. That was a bipartisan bill with Jack Reed, from a Democrat from Rhode Island, and Todd Young, a Republican from Indiana, that would help encourage and push the Institutes for Education Sciences, our education research arm, to really make adult education a priority and to do it in a current modern way. A second item we worked on, when Secretary Cardona, Secretary of Education, came into office, he set new priorities for the whole Department of Education. We had an opportunity to comment on those. And COABE suggested 4 recommendations that would help make sure that the Department of Education saw adult ed as part of its comprehensive priority agenda. And in the end, the secretary did adopt 3 of COABE's 4 recommendations, which means that adult ed is in, as we would like it, part of the secretary's overall priorities for education. And then thirdly, kind of what's churning right now in the policy arena is that the workforce and WIOA, as you know, Workforce Improvement and Opportunity Act, is actually moving in the House. The House Democrats are starting to collect a bill that would be hopefully marked up in the next few weeks and then move through the House. And so as part of that, really critical, we talk a lot about this, policy happens when preparation meets opportunity. And over the last 2 years, you all have put in ideas to us through various policy committees and your state groups to help advise us on what are the new modern ideas for WIOA that we should be pushing. We had those legislative recommendations ready. And when the House said we want to move, we sent those up there, and Sharon and Regina and others have been actively working with the House committee to make sure those are adopted. And it's really looking positive. A lot of our recommendations that COABE put forward were in there. A few highlights. One is that They did adopt a pilot that would look at more innovative, modern ways to look at outcomes for adult ed programs. We had increase in there about how much programs can spend on professional development, and also language allowing for the improvement around of quality of credentialing in adult education. Those are just a few of the highlights. Once we see what actually gets marked up in the House, we will prepare a summary and some of those details of what they actually move forward. But that's been critical as we all work together. So as we look ahead, we hope that you'll keep that same kind of engagement. The president literally about an hour ago released his FY23 budget. That FY23 budget starts in October 1 of 22 and ends in September 30th of 23. And Congress has to now take the president's budget and decide what its imprint is on it. The initial budget that the president put out had a $10 million increase for state adult education program, which would put us at 700 million. So we think this is a great launch pad as we go to Congress. It's a good first step. We are going to continue to ask for the $810 million total that we would want. So this is a $10 million down payment on that. And Senator Jack Reed and others are helping us lead that effort to fight in Congress for bigger increases. And we will be asking you to help to give voice to that ask. And then, as I mentioned before, we'll continue to have more funding ideas and ways to message that around the reconciliation bill as that moves forward. So I just want to reiterate as I close my time here that, you know, when we send out these alerts and emails, it's your ability to activate around them in this coming advocacy month that we have, your work to give voice to the examples, to tell the stories about what's happening, to show the need for the increases in funding are all essential to continuing our efforts in these successes. So we hope that you'll join us in that effort, and we look forward to working with you. And with that, I'll turn it back to Regina.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Donica. And hopefully everybody's looking at the chat. I was trying to, while you were talking, Donica, highlight some of the things you were saying. But I think the real important thing to note is we need to stay engaged. You need to stay engaged with COABE because we are trying to make it really easy for you to advocate for the things that you need in the field. So thank you so much, Donica, for sharing. All right, next up is our fabulous CEO, Sharon Bonney.
Thanks so much, Regina, and thank you, Donica. Thank you for that wonderful update for the field. You know, I just want to mention here on this slide, we know that so many of our programs are operating on a really tight budget. This is what we hear all the time from the field. And many programs are still in that emergency remote teaching mode, and they need support to move to quality distance learning. So now is not a time to let up our foot from the pedal. We need to keep moving forward with our advocacy efforts. So many of our adult learners do not have Wi-Fi access or a laptop. And many programs and administrators need technical support, and they're really struggling. This is what we hear constantly from the field. You know, we see adult education as that kind of mecca where there's workforce and medical needs and benefits. We're that connection for workforce and the connection to community college. And elected officials need to hear about this. There's personal crisis in the home and well-being, and connecting resources are needed. So adult education is critical. It's critical, but the majority of our programs did not receive stimulus funding. Your elected officials need to know, how is COVID impacting adult education in your community? They're relying on you to tell them that story. They're not going to know otherwise. You know, consider literacy, economic, and mental health impacts as well. So when you meet with them or when you email them or call them, let them know, are in-person adult education classes being held? If not, are classes being held virtually? And what are the barriers for holding classes virtually? What additional funding or flexibilities are needed to better serve the adult ed community during this time? And are adult learners able to access their public benefits such as SNAP? Telling them about the long-term and short-term needs is critical, and you are that voice. You are the voice to that legislator. So next slide, please. Regina, I think I'm turning this over to you here.
Yep, sorry, my finger's a little slow on the unmute and the camera icon. So thank you for that kind of context, Sharon. And so, you know, legislators, community leaders, local business folks, you know, your faith-based communities, they all need to hear what adult education is and what adult education does, because and we're really that voice that to help them see, you know, what is needed for advocacy. And anyone can do advocacy. It's not just program directors or lobbyists. Anybody can do it, including your students. So we've collected some ideas from various folks. I'm not going to go through all of them. This chart will be available after the webinar as well. But we just wanted to show you that there's lots of ways to advocate for adult education, and some of them are a really easy lift, like using the 3-click software, and some of them might take a little bit longer. Some of them can be done virtually. Some of them can be done with your classes as civic lessons. Some things teachers can do. Sometimes, in fact, you could also get your allies or friends or other organizations to do advocacy work for you. So as we're kind of looking through the Advocacy April calendar, I'm just wondering in the chat if you could just maybe tell us which things you might want to think about trying in April. You've got a couple days to plan before April comes. So I'll wait just a second and to see what maybe folks are willing to try. If you just want to type that in the chat. Of course, Erin, you're going to meet with legislators. Of course, that's great. And doing it virtually makes it so much easier than, you know, in the past. Even though if you get the chance to do it in person, that's still great too. I'm so happy to see that, you know, folks are going to participate in the Twitter storm, the social media posts. We get a lot of traction on the social media posts. Believe it or not, most of our legislators and policymakers are on Twitter. Great, thanks so much for those ideas, or not ideas, but the things you're going to commit to in the chat. That's awesome. Oh, voting lesson, that's great too. Anyway, you can tie any of these advocacy efforts into a civics lesson, which is part of our work. So as Donica told us, you know, we are getting an additional $15.5 million in appropriations this year. And so if you take that and add it up to the increases we've received since 2017, and that's really when COABE began to take a lead role in advocacy in the adult education field. We've, if you look at it year over year, with this latest 15.5 million, we're at over $108.5 million in increases. And I've heard from people before that they didn't think adult ed ever got increases, but we know that advocacy works because we've seen increases year over year. And instead of falling back to original, you know, or prior year numbers, we keep gaining every year. So we know advocacy works. And so now it's my pleasure to introduce Renee Rivers. She's our COABE Advocate of the Year for 2022. A little bit about Renee. She's been employed by Dorchester School District 2 in Summerville, South Carolina as the program coordinator for the county for the past 24 years. And she believes that life is not being rich, being popular, being highly educated, or being perfect. It's all about being real, being humble, and being kind. So I'd like to welcome Renee now to tell us a little bit about her advocacy efforts this last year.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Can you see me? Because I can't see myself.
Yes, we can see you.
Okay, all right, great. All right, well, thank you, Sharon and Regina, for the invitation to present to you. Every adult educator is an advocate. We know how important adult education is to us, and it's we need to take every opportunity to tell others about adult education and what it is that we do. Over the past year of this advocacy journey, 38 amazing fellows including myself, have worked tirelessly to bring some much needed attention to adult education. And I'm just going to share with you briefly some of the things that I did over the past year. Number one, legislator meetings. We scheduled, and the beauty about all of this is that COABE laid the foundation. They identified for us the key legislators that we needed to target during Capitol Days on the Hill. So I was able to connect with 7 of the 9 legislators for South Carolina, which I was really, really happy about that, both at the federal and the state level. So that was interesting, very interesting. Obviously, the more I got into it, the more comfortable I was with it. But like I said, COABE laid out everything, gave us all of the information and the resources that we needed to be able to speak to the legislators about data and about numbers and all of that. Number 2, lots of social media. During this COVID time, we knew that social media was probably the outlet that we needed to get more light shed on adult education programs. And for this part, I really stepped out of my comfort zone, because up until the past year, I was not on social media, didn't have any interest in it. But I figured, well, I needed to get out there. So my daughter helped me with this, with the Facebook platform. So I really stepped out of my comfort zone. Still not really savvy with Twitter and Instagram, but I'm working on it. But it's been a lot of fun. Not only did I highlighted different programs in South Carolina, what they were doing. I even drove to Columbia to record a video on the State House Capitol grounds, but I just had a great time, because I believe that as much as we can do to get adult education out there, we need to do it. And I was surprised at the fact that not a whole lot of people they know about adult ed, but they just don't know the depth of what we do and the broad spectrum of the students that we serve. So I hope that social media, and as well my colleagues, we got the word out, and we'll continue to do so. Number 3, promoting adult education. It's really simple and easy. Whatever we can do, from making presentations to sending invitations to our mayors, our county council members, governors to come in and visit our programs. I spent a lot of time emailing the schedulers, trying to get our representatives in to visit our programs. It's nothing, we can talk it, but they need to see it to really understand what it is that we do, and the people, the students that we serve, and the difference that adult education makes in their lives. Number 4 and 5 sort of tie in together. Use your state association as a resource. I reached out to the president of our state association, as well as the president of the Association for Adult Education Directors. I reached out to both of them. They have been very helpful and important in this advocacy journey, from different perspectives. When we met with legislators, just given the different perspectives about adult education and our needs, and what we need to continue to provide the quality of service that adult education does. COABE also has student ambassadors. And let me go back. When I met with the legislative, of course, all of the meetings were virtual. I did it the old-fashioned way, where I sent my PowerPoint presentations actually to them so they could have it in advance to maybe look over it. And I highlighted students and success stories from their districts where they are responsible for representing, so that they can put faces when I was talking. And I think they really appreciated that along the ways I did that. Basically, in a nutshell, that's kind of the things that I did to promote adult education. And I don't know who said it, and I'm not a politician, but we are stronger together. Over this past year, I have grown so much and learned so much because of COABE and this fellowship. And I'm not really a numbers and a data person, and I don't talk a lot. But Sharon and her team made this journey very, very simple. All the data and the groundwork was done for us. So we just kind of took it, tailored it to our specific programs and state and ran with it. So, but I'm very, and I will continue this advocacy journey in the future. And I just have to give a shout out to my state director, Mike King, and the adult educators in South Carolina, my colleagues, my director, my coworkers. I forgot about the 3 clicks. That was really, really, really simple. We use that a lot. Every time there was an update, I send it out to my coworkers, the adult ed directors, so they can send it out to their staff and their students. As part of Adult Education Family Literacy Week, we took all of our students in the computer lab as a part of their civics lesson, and had them to participate and do the 3 clicks, and encourage them to have their families and everybody to just participate in the 3 clicks. It's really simple. But I think that's all I have.
Thanks so much, Renee. I'm really so excited that you mentioned both ambassadors and how easy it is to use the 3-click software. I mean, just imagine, you know, we have over 1 million students. If we could just get 10% of our students to step outside their classroom, pull out their cell phones, and write to their policymakers, to their Congress men and women and senators, it would take a couple minutes. And just imagine if that were to happen. I mean, to have, you know, 100,000 contacts by students, it would be so awesome. So thank you so much, Renee, for kind of giving us a little bit of information about your journey as a fellow and as kind of a new advocate. All right, up next is Sharon. She's going to tell us about all of the tools and resources that Renee was talking about.
That's right. Hello, everybody. I'm back again. And I wanted to actually share my screen here so I could click through, take you right into these hot links that we have here. And we are going to be sharing this with you after so that you have this as well. Oh, that is not sharing the correct screen. Hold on 1 second here. And what I wanted to mention too, as I'm pulling up my screen, is just how proud I am of Renee. I mean, I feel like she embodies what we hope advocates will become, you know, starting out just not even on social media, not really comfortable talking to legislators, not really engaged in advocacy at all. And now look at all the things that she was doing to support Adult Ed and Family Literacy Week and that sort of thing. So thank you, Renee, for all that you did. Let me try this one more time here. Give me a second. There we go. Okay. Okay, hopefully you all can see that. So I'm very excited to share with you all the different COWEEB resources. Renee mentioned this briefly. There's a lot of different resources here. They're also on our homepage, which I'm going to show you in a minute. But one thing you can do, super easy, you can look up your legislator. So you can actually come in here, type your zip code, type go, and it's going to bring up all your legislators based on that zip code. So that's a really easy way to connect in and send a personal email, or make a phone call, that sort of thing. So that's one thing. We also have an email that's ready for you to go to schedule an appointment with your legislator. Again, you can come right into this hot link here. It's going to give you your, you type in your information one time. It's going to save it for you if you'd like to. And then we've already put together an email for you that's really easy. It's editable as well. So you could just go ahead and put in the time frame that you're available here. You could decide, you know what, I really don't want to meet with this person or this person. You can click off, that's no problem. But if you'd like to, it'll go to all these individuals here. So it pulls them all in, then you can click off those that you don't want to meet with. Then here's the subject line, can we meet to discuss adult education? You can change that, but it's set here if you'd like to go ahead with it. And again, this is all editable. And then you hit submit, it's going to go to all of them. And then you'll start getting emails back from their staffers in terms of getting these calls scheduled. So that is another tool that COABE has set up for you. I wanted to mention the award-winning Educate and Elevate campaign site. So for those of you that are not aware, back in 2017, COABE launched this Educate and Elevate National Public Awareness campaign. that's won 6 international awards. And the point of this campaign really was to provide tools and resources for the field and to really give funders and legislators a place to go, one place that they could go to find out about adult education. So there's a lot of information on here. There are data sheets that you can download, so national data sheets, workforce data sheets. There's a video, Success Files with Rob Lowe video that was picked up by Success Files with Rob Lowe and pushed out to 143 million viewers nationwide. There's this right here that's available as well. But there's a lot of other tools here on this site as well that I'm excited to share with you. So for example, if you come right up here on the left-hand side, you can go into the map locator tool and click on your state. So I live in Florida, so I'm going to come down here and click on Florida. And it's going to pull up a data sheet specifically for my state, also a state data analysis, and we're going to look at all of these, and then county-wide information too. So here on this data sheet, which we're going to be updating very shortly as soon as NRS data becomes available, but on this sheet right now, it shows the high school credentials, the MSGs, the number of individuals that need resources and skills, that need adult education, the numbers that we're serving, our funding, and what this breaks down to at the federal level, which I love this because we have $256 per adult learner, whereas in elementary ed, it's $10,000 per pupil. So we look at adult education working with those with the most barriers, $256 per year per learner, whereas in elementary ed, it's $10,000. But there's a lot of information in here. We tried to put it in a format that's really easy to understand and easy to explain. So when you're meeting with legislators, it's easy for you to explain this. Then this sheet in here, if you were to click it, it shows your state's national ranking according to the PIAC data. So you can click in there, and a lot of times governors and their staff are very interested in that. And then in here, we can come in here. This information brings you right down to the county-wide level. I want to explore this map. Now, if I'm coming here, I can see, for example, in this county, that where 36% are at or below level 1 in literacy, compared to 24% and then the 22% for the national data. So you can see it goes county by county. And this is something that is updated and kept by the PIAC information. So these are resources that are available to you that are free that you can use when you meet with legislators. I already covered in here the state fact sheets, the national data sheets. So those are some tools that are available to you. We also have, when you have those meetings with your legislators, a feedback form so you can tell us how the meeting went. Super easy to use. I'll just go right in here and you can see, tell us how your legislative visits went, your first name, your last name, the meeting date, who you met with, what office, and then some meeting notes. And that just gives us at COABE a sense of what's taking place in the field. And that's been a really useful tool as well. So when we meet with other legislators, we know how the meetings have gone in the past. Then as well, we have this PowerPoint deck. When you come in here, you can see this has already been set up for you. If you wanted to showcase some slides, some beautiful slides, and then you could add your own program overview in state level perspective and student stories if you wanted to add that in. Just a lot of information that's already kind of been put in here for you. And again, you don't have to use it all. You can take out what you don't want to, but what you'd like, if you'd like to use it, it's here for you. Just some really nice looking slides that you can use. Okay, so that's all available to you. These are tools that COABE has built for the field. I also wanted to mention that there's the 3 asks. And we say to legislators, we just need 10 minutes of your time. And you can use our 3 quick clicks to take action through the Ignite software. I think, Regina, you were going to show everybody how to do that. But this is just the 3 quick clicks. And through this, we've had contact with over 200,000 connections with legislators. I wanted to mention, too, that there's still a lot of CARES Act and American Rescue Plan funding that's available out there. So while we're always looking at working with legislators at the national level, that state level is so critical as well. It's super important to contact your governors, your lieutenant governors. It's important to talk to your mayors. And COABE, again, has made that really easy to do that. We talked already about these fact sheets and talking points. COABE has prepared talking points as well. And I think I'm supposed to turn this back over to you, Regina, to talk about the Advocast.
Thank you. Oh, I have to, are you
Do I need to
gonna,
stop sharing my screen? Okay, sorry
yeah.
about that.
That's all right. All right, let me see now. I should be able to do that. Sorry for that interruption. While I think that you could see my screen now, I did see while I was listening to Sharon a question come in about can adult learner students meet with legislators? And the answer is yes. In fact, that makes for the best visits. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. One of the other really great kind of advocacy tools and a way for the field to learn about advocacy is the Adult Ed Advocast. We've already had 2 great episodes with more coming. And I think one of our Advocast hosts is on this webinar, but we have 2 great fellows who, Aaron and Sarah, who are the hosts for that Advocast. And so hopefully you watch that or listen to that, I should say, to get even more advocacy tips. So the question was, you know, can you bring students? And yes, we want you to advocate and with your students. We want to activate your students. So, I mean, the easiest thing that they can do is like we said is, you know, take the phone, everybody's got the phone, and do the 3-click software, and they can personalize it to their story. But some other ways to do it is to look on the COABE website and look at training your students to be ambassadors. We want students to have the tools and the skills to be able to tell their stories to legislators. And we definitely think that taking students on virtual legislative visits, having them in person when you have maybe a legislator come to an event, you know, have them be involved in leadership roles in your program is a great way to activate your students. So we want you to visit with your policymakers, and it can be virtual or in person, but you don't have to go straight for the senators, even though that's exactly what we asked our fellows to do last year. You know, start out with, you know, your school superintendent or a college president, or maybe the chair of your workforce investment board. Kind of practice with those folks. You know, maybe it's a you know, a community leader. Practice with those folks. And then you'll see how easy it is, because what I have learned in my 30 years in adult ed is that adult educators are very passionate. We love our students. We love to do things with our students. And so that will all come through the more you practice, maybe with those, you know, less risky people, even though our congressmen and women and senators are just people like we are. And, you know, even if you didn't vote for them, you deserve their time. You are their boss. So of course, no matter what our political preferences are, we want to be respectful. We want to be helpful. We want to talk about adult education. It's not, you know, necessarily time to talk about everything that might be going on in the world. So you really need to be nonpartisan, and you really want to have the goal of not a short-term relationship, but really a long-term relationship. So, you know, we've talked about a few things, you know, about making an impact with minimal effort, and anybody can participate. This means teachers, students, your friends, you know, like-minded organizations, allies, and try the Zoom meetings. I think it also, the Zoom meetings take a little bit of the pressure off, you know, and could be a great practice before an in-person meeting. So make sure when you have meetings, either virtual or in person, that you come prepared. And we've, Sharon showed you all of the various tools to do that. You usually only have maybe between 15 and 30 minutes, you know, to meet with your policymakers. Make sure to let your policymakers know how COVID has affected your program and how it has affected your students. I think a lot of times they might think that they have spent a lot of money, which they have a lot of money on pandemic relief, but adult education has not received any specific pandemic relief monies. It's only through the advocacy work of many of you in the field where some programs in some states were able to receive some pandemic relief. So just some general tips on a virtual meeting. Make sure that you have control of the meeting, that you make sure that there's time for everyone to be introduced. Make sure you thank everyone on the call, whether it's staffers or the members of Congress. Make sure that you do your ask at the beginning, but then in your summary you ask again, and then of course follow up with an email. And make sure that your adult learners are prepared. You don't want to put them on the spot to tell a story, and then 20 minutes later they're still talking about their story, which is great, but you really need to have a plan, and students need to be trained and be prepared for a visit just as much as you need to be prepared and have a plan. So some tips for visits: remember that you are the expert. You know maybe more, you probably do know more than about adult ed, certainly than they do. Make sure to localize your story because the members of Congress are there to represent you and their constituents. And so make sure that they see that, and then personalize your story. And this could be, if you can't get a learner trained and ready and at a visit, then make sure that you maybe have a written story that you can share or some way to share the student perspective. So in the chat, just for a minute, what's the most helpful to you in your outreach to legislators? So what kind of tools or resources do you need to reach out to your legislators? What kind of tools? Thanks, Peg and Renee, for in the chat commenting on the preparation and the resources that are at your disposal. Maybe mock videos. Interesting. That's a great idea, Patricia. Sharon, let's write that down somewhere to remember that maybe as a resource, a mock legislator visit. We have some of those in our ambassador training, but they're not widely shareable. And Rebecca, the templates are helpful. How to ask without lobbying examples. Brand new to advocating. Thanks, Ashley, for joining us. All right, these are all really great ideas. Thank you so much for sharing those, and we will definitely try to address those. So one of the cool things we did this year was to put a survey out. And I know this is pretty small, so I'm gonna give you the highlights, but the survey went out to the field to kind of ask you what we should be advocating for, what COABE should be advocating for. So thank you if you're one of the over 760 people who took the public policy survey. You really confirmed that you want us to continue to meet with legislators, so we are going to continue doing that. And you want us to continue to advocate for increases in funding. Those were the top two things in the survey. Both for stimulus dollars and in appropriations. And then a close third and fourth was more full-time teachers. A lot of people want more full-time teachers and navigators, and also the more investment in IETs. Another highlight from the survey was about WIOA reauthorization, and Donica talked a little bit about this. So survey participants want us to advocate wanted us to advocate to take PD costs out of that 5% admin cap. And, initially we're looking at that in the WIOA reauthorization draft language already. So that's really great. And the field also wanted us to continue to advocate to broaden the definition of digital literacy to include all of our students. And so important with the Digital Literacy Act being passed that we consider digital literacy more than we have in the past. So really next steps, right? So if you do nothing else after today, which hopefully, again, you have that whole calendar of ideas. Hopefully, if you do nothing else, you'll do at least the 3-click Ignite software. Because once you do it, especially on your phone, it's super easy. You can click the little remember me button, And then every time we get an action alert, when I get them, I don't think, oh, I'm going to do that tomorrow. It's literally so fast. I do it like right away so I don't forget. So hopefully, if nothing else, you do that. Make sure you use social media. And I believe Sharon put some hashtags in the chat to use when you're using social media. And you have a big opportunity coming up, right? This time of year where graduation season is coming. And most likely graduations are going to be held in person this year after maybe a couple year gap and so invite your mayor, your governor, your senator, your congresswoman, invite them to those events. They love to go to big events where, you know, they get to be seen by a lot of people supporting education. So those are really great opportunities. So we have a little bit of time for questions and answers. I'm going to look and see if we have any in the Q&A section.
Regina, I was just going to chime in and say I love the suggestions that folks have put in there into the chat box. So just so you all know, Regina and I will go back through and look at these, and I can really see that we could implement a number of the suggestions to provide more resources for the field.
Yeah, and I'm just reading them right now. So 2 or 3 questions, it would help. That's great. So we'll go definitely through all of these and see if we can help address those. But any other questions before we give you a few minutes back today? Sharon, do you want to add some more?
I wanted to say one more thing, and that is when we started this Educate and Elevate National Public Awareness campaign back in 2017, I can tell you we were so concerned about having not only being frozen, but having funding either taken away, eliminated, however you want to say it, that we really were concerned about that. And much to our surprise, not only was the funding not taken away, but it was added, the visibility came, the recognition, the meetings. And I guess my point to it is it's not hard. It's what Renee and Regina have been saying. It's not hard to get in there and send your email, pick up the phone and make a phone call, schedule a meeting with a legislator, bring an adult learner with you. It really is not difficult. And I think that's what we wanted. We wanted to demystify advocacy. We want to make that point that this is easy to do. There's a lot of resources. It just takes a little bit of time. So when you reach out to legislators, you're investing in yourself, you're investing in your adult learners, you're really making that case for why they should fund you. We hear from so many programs that they're underfunded, they're under-resourced. Well, here's an easy way. There's all of these different tools and tips for ways to let legislators know about the great work that you're doing. And that graduation day, inviting them to your graduation ceremonies, that's another really great way. When they see those adult learners walking across the stage and they hear their stories, those are just some great ways to really raise the visibility of your work. So that's what I just wanted to mention, is that from where I sit, I've been amazed at how not only has the funding increased, but the visibility and the recognition that the field deserves for all the great work that's being done.
And, you know, I'm just going to add off of that, Sharon, that not only have we seen these steady increases at the federal level, but 12 of our fellows were able to get local or state additional dollars just by using a lot of these very same tools. So it's not even just at the federal level where you think, oh, by the time it dribbles down to me at the program level, it's going to be, you know, $52 or whatever. But you can use these same tools and these same strategies and tips for visiting to get money for your local and your state programs. So we know that advocacy works on all of those levels. I'm just going to look one last time to see if there's any questions or if we want to add anything else. And hopefully what this webinar has done is, you know, give you some really concrete, easy ways that you can advocate for your programs and with your students.
There is one question here. Where is the Ignite software? So Regina, would you like me to show them on the website where that
Yeah,
is?
sure,
if you
we've got
want to?
time.
Okay,
Yeah.
yep. So let me just cancel here.
I know how to find it on my phone. While you're pulling it up,
Yeah.
the phone is so easy. It's www.coabe.org. And then you just kind of scroll a little bit and you find the picture of the Capitol and it's right under there and it's take action. It's like takes 10 seconds on your phone.
Yes. Great. So here I am, coabe.org, and I'm just going to scroll down and I see where it says take action. Here it is. Click right here. There's my Ignite software. It's going to pull based on my zip code. I'm going to put that in one time. And here's the email that's going to be sent. Again, you can tailor this and edit this. This is editable. But there that is. But then there's 3 different ways you can take action. Like this one down here is for the governor's funding. So the stimulus funding, American Rescue Plan for Adult Education. It's going to go to my governor, which by the way has designated $100 million for adult education. So, and that's really through a lot of advocacy work that's taken place in this state. So I just really want to encourage you. There's tools there right on coabe.org. Also, we dedicated a page for Advocacy April. Right here under legislative, click Advocacy April. A whole bunch of tools right here, as you can see. There's even a Twitter storm we set up. So you can click in here. And here again, it has my information. It's going to pull by that. See, it takes a minute. The little wheel is turning. And it's going to pull up all these legislators' Twitter handles. So I don't have to do the work. I don't have to go out and find all of their Twitter handles. It's going to do it for me. And it just takes a second because it's thinking. Here we go. There it is. And I can tweet all together there. Or I can send all here. I don't even have to click tweet. I can send it all. I'm finished. So that's another tool that's
Super
available
easy.
for you.
So easy.
Yes. Here's another one. Share a learner story. We'd love to hear about what your learners are doing, how it's impacted their lives. Click right in here and tell us an adult learner success story. We'll profile it on the homepage. We profile it on social media. We want to hear from you. We want to know what's taking place in the field. So you could do that. That's another great way. And then, of course, we have our master guide right here, Advocacy April Master Guide. All kinds of information in here, talking points, right here that we've worked on with Penn Hill Group, our public policy firm, a sample script to help you, all sorts of information in here. So I think our goal, Regina, right, has been just make this as easy as possible. And I just want to take a minute to say, Regina Suitt's our president-elect, but she has also been our public policy chair. She has been engaged in public policy for, I don't even know how many years, right, Regina? Many, many years she's been doing this. She's an award-winning administrator who's dedicated a lot of time to helping our field at the national level. So I want to say thank you, Regina, for all your work, because you've looked at all this too and helped update it as we've gone along. And I also wanted to take a moment to thank Jeff Abramowitz, who's on here as well, who's our state advocate for adult education fellowship chair, who did an amazing job with our first cohort that went through the SAFE fellowship. So
yes.
I just wanted to mention that.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Sharon. And thanks to all of you out there. Whether you're the advocate of the year or like Renee or, someone who's been doing it for years, just trust us, right? Trust both Renee and I, and Jeff and Sharon, and Donica, and know that advocacy, it works. And so the little bit of time that we're asking you to work for your students and for your programs and for yourself, it definitely works. So. I'm just still looking at the chat. Thanks everybody.
Renee, do you have any final comments before we go?
I just would just like to encourage everyone to just go out and just speak about what your passion is. I mean, it's obvious that everyone is passionate about adult education. Just just let everyone know. And I think Patricia typed in the chat that she was intimidated by speaking to legislators, which I understand. I felt the same way because I was like, oh, what if they ask me a question and I don't have the answer to? But they were all very open and receptive to what I had to say about adult education. So that made it easier, and everyone was super nice. So you will get past those fears. Like I said, COABE has everything laid out for you, and you'll do fine. Everyone will do great.
Thanks, Renee.
Thanks, Renee, and thanks everybody for joining us today.
And happy Advocacy April, everybody. I hope you do
Woohoo!
great work. We can't wait to see the outcomes.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us.